The gas station sign glowed like a beacon in the dark desert night. I had been driving for hours with almost no traffic around me, my fuel gauge kissing the empty mark. When I saw those bright green letters promising gas, I felt relief wash over me. I pulled in, gravel crunching under my tires, and parked next to the nearest pump. The place looked deserted. The building was a small square box with dusty windows and a single flickering light above the door. I stepped out and the desert air hit me, dry and strangely still. No wind, no sound. It felt wrong, but I had tried to ignore it. As I reached for the pump, I noticed him. A man stood near the far corner of the station, just outside the glow of the light. I could barely see his outline. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, watching. "Hey," I called, trying to sound casual. No response. I blinked. He was gone. A cold chill ran down my spine. I scanned the area, but there was nothing but the quiet station and the endless dark of the desert beyond. I walked to the door of the store. The bell above it gave a weak jingle when I pushed it open. "Hello," I called out. No answer. The inside was empty. No cashier, no customers, just shelves lined with dusty snacks and faded drink bottles. It smelled like old gasoline and something sour. I stood there for a moment, unsure what to do. Then I heard a sound behind me. The pump outside clicked on by itself. I turned and saw the hose hanging from the pump, already jammed into my car's tank. Gasoline poured into it without me touching anything. My heart thudded in my chest. I stepped outside, scanning the darkness. Nothing moved. No wind, no insects. The night felt like it was holding its breath. That's when I saw the windshield. Someone had written on the glass, 3 words smeared in something dark. "Don't look back." Every instinct told me to leave, but then I heard it, a shuffle. Footsteps on gravel. Slow. Many of them. I turned my head despite the warning. Beyond the light of the station, lining the edges of the darkness, stood figures, dozens of them. They were too far to make out their faces, but I could see the way they stood, unnaturally still, like they were waiting. My mouth went dry. The pump clicked off, the tank full. The silence after that sound was almost worse. Then one of the figures stepped forward, not fast, just one careful step. I backed toward my car, my hands shaking. Another one moved, then another. It was like a signal had been given. I grabbed the pump handle, yanked it out of the tank, threw it aside. I jumped into the car, slammed the door shut, and locked it. The figures were closer now, moving in slow, deliberate steps. The writing on the windshield seemed darker now, almost fresh. I started the car. The engine sputtered once, then caught. I floored it. But the headlights showed something that made my stomach drop. The road I came from was gone. Where there had been highways stretching into the desert, there was now nothing but black sand and shadow. I had turned the wheel toward the other side, the road that should lead out of there. It was gone, too. The station sat in a circle of light surrounded by a sea of darkness, and the figures kept coming. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My breathing sounded too loud inside the car. The figures were at the edge of the light now. I couldn't stay in the car. I couldn't leave either. Then the station lights flickered. For a second everything went black. When the lights came back, the figures were closer. Just a few feet from the car, I slammed the horn. The sound cut through the night, but they didn't react. One of them stepped forward, its face finally catching the glow. Its skin was pale, almost gray. Its eyes were just empty sockets, no expression. I threw the car in reverse and hit the gas. The tires spun on the gravel, but the car didn't move. Something was holding it. I could feel the weight of it, like invisible hands pressing down on the hood. I grabbed my phone to call someone, anyone, but there was no signal. The screen lit my face, and for a second I saw my own reflection in the glass. There was someone standing behind me in the back seat. I spun around. The seat was empty. The phone went black. When I looked back out the windshield, all of them were gone. The gas station stood empty again. I opened the car door slowly, stepped out, every nerve screaming at me not to. The desert was silent. Then I heard breathing right behind me. I turned. They were all there, standing in a perfect circle around the station, closer than before. This time I didn't run. There was nowhere to go. The nearest figure tilted its head like it was curious. Then it pointed at the glass door of the store. I followed its gesture. The door had fogged over from the inside, though I had never seen fog in a desert night. Words appeared as if a finger was writing them from the other side. You shouldn't have looked. My chest felt tight. The light over the station started buzzing louder, a sharp electric whine. Then it blew out. Everything went dark. I saw nothing, only the sound of footsteps closing in from every side. The last thing I felt was a cold hand on my shoulder. I always thought the night shifts would be boring. A quiet gas station on the edge of town, surrounded by nothing but a 2-lane road and empty fields. People pulled in for gas or cigarettes during the day, but after midnight it was usually silence. My name is Sam, and for a while I believed silence meant safety. That night proved me wrong. It was almost 2 in the morning when I heard it. The sound of footsteps, slow, uneven, coming from the storage room behind the counter. I froze. No one else was supposed to be here. The door had been locked, and I had checked it twice. I stood there with my hand resting on the register, listening, my pulse climbing. The footsteps stopped as if whoever was inside knew I was listening. I swallowed hard and reached for the monitor on the counter. The gas station had 4 cameras, one above the pumps, one in the back hallway, one over the door, and one in the storage room. When I switched to the storage feed, the room looked empty. Boxes stacked neatly, shelves lined with old cleaning supplies, nothing else. Still, I knew I had heard it. Then I switched to the pump camera. My blood ran cold. A figure was walking slowly between the columns, almost floating in the weak glow of the overhead lights. She looked like a woman, thin, her hair long and dark. Her dress was white, almost glowing in the black and gray of the night. She moved past one pump, then another, and when she turned her head, the image glitched. For a second her face blurred like static. I muttered to myself, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a drunk customer. Maybe my tired eyes were playing tricks. But when I looked again, the figure was gone. Against my better judgment, I grabbed the flashlight from under the counter and stepped outside. The night air was cold, sharper than I expected. I scanned the lot. Empty. The pumps stood quiet under the buzzing lights. Gravel crunched under my boots as I walked around the side of the building. That's when I saw it. A cloth, small and crumpled, lying in the dirt. I bent down and picked it up. My hand recoiled almost instantly. The fabric was stiff, dark stains covering most of it. Blood. Old, dried, but unmistakable. My chest tightened. I dropped it back onto the ground and backed away. The station lights flickered. I looked up just as the main sign buzzed, dimmed, and then went black. My stomach sank. Inside, I heard the hum of the coolers cut out. Then the store went silent. Too silent. I rushed back inside, slamming the door behind me. The power was gone, every bulb dead, leaving only the pale moonlight seeping through the glass front. My hands shook as I fumbled for my phone, but the screen froze on me, refusing to call out. Then I saw it. On the wide glass window facing the pumps, a hand appeared, thin, pale. The fingers pressed flat against the glass, sliding slowly down as if dragged by something unseen. Each inch left behind a faint trail of condensation. The hand lingered, then slipped away into the dark. I stood there, breath shallow, staring at the glass, and then I realized I wasn't alone. My eyes adjusted slowly to the dim light. The aisles of snacks and bottled drinks stretched out like dark corridors. Every sound seemed louder. My own breathing, the faint tick of the clock on the wall, then something else. A faint shuffle like feet brushing against the floor tiles. I whispered into the dark, "Who's there?" My voice cracked. No answer. I moved carefully toward the back aisle, flashlight gripped tight. When I clicked it on, the beam cut across the shelves. The light caught something at the far end, a shadow. It flickered and darted away as if it had been waiting for me to look. "Hello?" I tried again, louder. The silence that followed felt heavier than any reply could have. I turned the corner and froze. Standing at the end of the aisle was the girl, the same pale figure from the camera. White dress, hair falling over her face, her head tilted slightly as if studying me. My chest locked. She didn't move. I raised the flashlight, the beam washing over her. In the light, her dress wasn't white. It was stained. Dark patches spread across the fabric, trailing downward. Her eyes, when she lifted her head, looked hollow. Not empty sockets, but so clouded they seemed lifeless. Before I could speak, the flashlight flickered. Then the beam died. Darkness swallowed everything. I staggered backward, bumping into the shelf. Packages rattled to the floor. My hands scrambled for the flashlight, smacking it against my palm. When it flickered back on, the aisle was empty. My throat was dry. I turned toward the counter, ready to grab my keys and leave. But then I noticed something new. The blood-stained cloth I had left outside was now on the floor behind the register. I hadn't carried it in. Someone else had. The security monitor blinked back to life, even though the store was still dark. Static filled the screen, then slowly cleared. The camera over the pumps came into focus. The girl stood there, directly in front of the lens, her face inches from it. Her lips moved, but no sound came through. Her mouth opened wider, too wide, stretching unnaturally until the screen glitched again. A sharp knock rattled the glass door. I spun around. A hand pressed flat against it, just like before. This time I saw the face through the glass. Pale, smiling faintly, her eyes locked on mine. The door handle twitched. I backed away, fumbling for the phone again. Dead. My chest pounded so hard it hurt. The lights above flickered once more, humming back to life for only a second. In that flash of light, the store looked normal, empty, silent. Then everything went black again. Behind me, close enough that I could feel the breath on my neck, a voice whispered, "Why did you come outside?" The storm rolled in faster than I expected. By the time I saw the gas station lights ahead, the sky was already tearing open with thunder. Rain hit the windshield so hard it looked like static on an old TV screen. I pulled into the lot, relieved to see a roof over the pumps. The building looked old, but it was open. A buzzing sign in the window promised coffee and shelter. Inside, the place felt strangely quiet. The storm was raging outside, yet here I could only hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. A man behind the counter glanced up from a magazine. He looked tired, like he had been working nights for years. I grabbed a coffee and paid. He didn't say much, just nodded. I turned toward the door, ready to keep driving once the rain slowed down. Then I froze. From the hallway near the restrooms I heard it, a sound that had no place in a gas station, a child crying. It was soft, muffled, but impossible to mistake. I walked toward it. At the end of the hallway was a door I hadn't noticed before. Metal, painted gray, with a lock hanging loosely from the latch. The crying was right behind it. I turned back to the counter. "Hey, someone's in there." The man's face changed instantly. His eyes narrowed. "What door?" "The one at the end of the hall," I said. "Somebody's locked inside." "There is no door." He said it flat, without even turning his head. I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" "It's right there." He shook his head and went back to flipping pages. Like the conversation was over. I felt my pulse rise. I wasn't imagining this. The crying was still going, though quieter now, like whoever was inside knew I was listening. I walked back down the hall. The door was still there. I touched the knob, cold. I turned it slowly. The lock was broken, swinging free. The door opened. A narrow staircase led down into pitch darkness. The smell of gasoline drifted up immediately, sharp and heavy. I called out, "Hello." The crying stopped. I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and started down. Each step creaked under my weight. The air grew thicker with the smell of fuel. At the bottom, the beam of my light hit something that made no sense. A gas pump. It stood in the middle of the concrete floor. Old, rusted, like it had been ripped straight out of the ground decades ago and left here to rot. Around it were rows of plastic fuel cans, stacked haphazardly. Some were open. The stench was suffocating. I took a step closer. My light caught movement. The nozzle of the pump twitched. Just slightly, but enough to make me stop breathing. Then a whisper filled the room. Not from a person, from everywhere at once. "Your turn." I spun around. The stairs were gone. The wall behind me was smooth concrete. The whisper came again, this time from the pump itself. "Your turn." A low hiss followed. Liquid began spilling from the nozzle. Thick streams of gasoline splattered onto the floor, running toward me. The cans around the room began to rattle as if something inside them wanted out. I backed against the wall, clutching my phone like it was the only weapon I had. The gasoline reached my shoes, cold, slick, rising fast. I shouted, "Let me out." The whisper only repeated, "Your turn." The pump shuddered, metal groaning as more fuel poured out. The cans tipped over one by one, splashing their contents into the spreading pool. I looked up at the ceiling. No vents, no exit, just concrete and shadows. The gasoline climbed past my ankles. The smell was so strong I could barely keep my eyes open. I coughed, gagged, trying not to inhale. My phone light flickered. For a second I thought the battery was dying. Then I realized something else. Shapes were moving in the reflection of the liquid. Faces, pale, half-formed, staring up from the rippling surface. Children. Their mouths moved in silence, their eyes wide, unblinking. The whisper came again, but now it sounded like dozens of voices layered together. "Your turn." The liquid reached my knees. The faces pressed closer to the surface, like they were about to break through. I screamed and tried pounding on the wall where the stairs had been. Nothing gave. Behind me, the pump let out a metallic groan. I turned and saw its display screen, cracked and dusty, suddenly flicker to life. Numbers began spinning upward as if someone was filling a car with fuel. The nozzle jerked and thrashed like a snake in the air, spraying arcs of gasoline across the room. The faces in the liquid began to rise. Their heads broke the surface. Dripping, gas-soaked hair clung to their faces. They moved without splashes, as if the fuel was solid beneath them. One of them opened its mouth. This time, the sound was not a whisper. It was a scream. The scream echoed in the basement until it felt like the walls were vibrating. My ears rang, my vision blurred. I stumbled backward, but the liquid kept rising. The children, or whatever they were, climbed higher, their skin glistening with gasoline. Their eyes reflected the beam from my phone, bright and glassy like headlights. They didn't blink. One of them, a boy no older than 7, tilted his head and repeated the words in a voice that made my chest tighten. "Your turn." I shook my head, shouting over the noise, "I'm not part of this. Let me out." The pump answered by jerking again, spraying more fuel into the air. The numbers on the screen spun faster, blurring into nonsense. The boy climbed closer. His hands gripped the surface of the liquid as if it were solid ground. He dragged himself toward me, eyes fixed on mine. The others followed, a dozen pale shapes crawling out of the gasoline like it was their home. I pressed against the wall, desperate. My phone slipped in my grip, the light splashing across their faces. Gasoline jerked from their mouths. Every breath I took burned my throat. The boy stopped inches from me. He reached out, touching my leg with fingers that felt ice cold. His lips moved. Breathe. I gasped. Suddenly, the air in my lungs felt thick, heavy. The fumes clawed at me, making me dizzy. I tried to hold my breath, but I couldn't. My body forced me to inhale. The room tilted. The faces swam in and out of focus. I dropped to my knees in the rising liquid. The children circled me, whispering in unison, "Your turn, your turn, your turn." The pump's display screen flared, glowing bright enough to light the entire room. The numbers froze. Then a new word appeared, carved across the cracked glass. Name. I blinked through the haze. My name. It wanted my name. The children leaned closer, their voices a single hiss. Say it. I shook my head, forcing the words out through the fumes. No. The hiss turned into shrieks. Their pale hands clawed at me, dragging me deeper into the liquid. I thrashed, splashing, choking on gasoline as it poured into my mouth and nose. My chest burned like fire. Just before I blacked out, the pump's nozzle shot forward, slamming into my chest like a spear. The world went white. When I opened my eyes, I was standing at the counter again. The worker looked up from his magazine. The storm outside had gone quiet. My cup of coffee sat on the counter, steam rising as if nothing had happened. For a moment I thought I had dreamed it all. Then I saw my shoes, soaked, dark with fuel. The smell clung to me. I staggered back. What the hell was that? The worker's expression didn't change. You went downstairs. You told me there was no door. He closed the magazine. There isn't. Not anymore. I glanced at the hallway. The door was gone, replaced with smooth plaster. I turned back. What is that place? He didn't answer. Instead, he pushed the coffee closer. His hand trembled. Drink. It helps. I stared at him, my throat still raw, my skin reeking of gasoline. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but something in his eyes stopped me. Resignation. He had seen it before. I left the coffee on the counter and ran into the night. On the drive home, I couldn't shake the smell. It filled the car, soaked into my clothes. My hands still felt cold where the boy had touched me. When I got back to my apartment, I stripped down and threw everything into the trash. Showered until my skin turned red. The stench lingered. At 3 a.m., I woke to a sound from the kitchen. A low hiss. I crept in, heart pounding. The faucet was dry. The stove was off. But on the counter sat a small red gas can. One I had never owned. The cap was loose. A thin stream of liquid dripped onto the floor. The whisper filled the room. Your turn.